My twin sister, Megan, got $70,000 a year to study art in Italy. When I asked my mother, Susan, about my law school tuition, she just smiled. It was this calm, almost kind smile. She said Megan was sensitive and deserved the support. Then she turned to me, and her voice got even softer. You're the strong one. Lauren, you don't need that. I just stood there, and I realized it wasn't a compliment. It was a sentence. Have you ever been the strong one in your family, the one who was just defaulted to take care of everything, while everyone else got to be weak? Share your story in the comments below. I read all of them. That sentence wasn't an accident. It was the system. Our family lived in this perfect two-story house, the kind with white shutters and a lawn that looked like green carpet. My father, Mark, was a financial manager, and his entire world revolved around image. My mother, Susan, was obsessed with something else, my sister's potential. We were twins, but we were cast in roles the day we were born. Megan was the creative one, the special one. I was the practical one. I remember when I was 10. I fell off my bike. I knew. Instantly, my arm was broken. I could see the bone pressing wrong against the skin. I walked home, cradling it against my chest, trying not to cry. When I got to the house, the car was running. My parents were busy. They were rushing Megan across town to an audition for some community theater play. My mother saw me, saw the arm, and just sighed. Oh? Lauren, you're such a mess. Can't this wait? It couldn't. But I sat on the porch steps for an hour, waiting for them to get back, telling myself the pain wasn't that bad. When they finally returned, Megan was buzzing, talking about the part she was definitely going to get. My mother's first words to me were, "All right, let's go. Your father is annoyed we have to cancel our dinner reservations." It was like that. Always. 1,000 tiny cuts. On our 16th birthday, Megan got an antique baby grand piano. It took up the entire living room. She has talent. My mother explained to guests, it's an investment in her soul. I got a $100 savings bond. My father clapped me on the shoulder. This is practical. Lauren, it'll grow. You understand things like that. I did understand. I understood that Megan was the dream, and I was the utility. I was the one who was good at math. So I started balancing my mother's checkbook when I was 14. I was the one who was responsible, so I was the one who reminded Megan to turn in her art projects. The one who made sure the bills were organized for my father. My practicality wasn't a personality trait. It was a survival mechanism. It was the only way I was allowed to exist in that house. I wasn't the daughter they bragged about. I was the daughter they relied on. And I was learning slowly and painfully. That being relied on was just another word for being taken for granted. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a function, the one who would just figure it out. And for years, I did. Until I couldn't. Or maybe, until I just wouldn't anymore. I was in my second year at Ambrose Law School. The tuition deadline was hanging over my head like an axe. I was working 2 jobs, one as a research assistant, and one at a 24-hour diner, taking the graveyard shift from midnight to 6 a.m. I was living on stale coffee and 3 hours of sleep. And I was still short. I stared at the Bursars bill on my laptop screen. My hand was shaking. I finally picked up the phone. I wasn't calling to ask for a handout. I was calling to ask for a loan. With interest, I had a whole spreadsheet ready to prove I could pay it back. My mother, Susan, answered. I could hear classical music in the background. Vivaldi. It was bright and chaotic. Lauren? Hi. Honey. Is this quick? We're just trying to find the right adapter for Megan's flat iron. You know Italy has different outlets. My throat tightened. Mom, I needed to talk to you about tuition. I'm a little short this semester. I was wondering if I could get a loan from you and Dad. Just a loan. I'll pay it back. With interest. The Vivaldi swelled. There was a long pause. Then, a sigh. Not an angry sigh. A tired sigh. As if I was the one inconveniencing her. Lauren, she said. Her voice strained. We just paid $70,000 for Megan's apartment and her first year's expenses in Florence. You know she needs to be settled. She needs to be able to focus on her art. I know, I said. My voice quiet. This is just a loan. Mom, it's not a gift. You'll figure it out. Lauren. The music stopped. Everything stopped. You always do, she said. And then she hung up. I just stood there. In my tiny, cold apartment, holding a dead phone. You always do. It wasn't a compliment. I saw it. Finally. It was a prison. There's a term for this. It's parentification. It's the trap you fall into when you're the capable one. It's not that they think you're strong, it's that they need you to be strong, so they don't have to show up. It's an abdication of responsibility. I wasn't just their daughter. I was my own parent. And in that same, awful, quiet moment, I understood the rest of it. I was the scapegoat. Megan was the golden child. She was the creative one, the sensitive one. She was the projection of every dream my mother had for herself. She was perfect and special. And I was the practical one. The cold one. The one who was good with numbers. Just like my father, whom my mother secretly resented for not being an artist. I was the one who had to carry the burden of the real world. The one who had to handle the messy details, so they could all live in their beautiful, curated fantasy. I looked at my law books, stacked a foot high on my desk. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt cold. It was the sound of a door locking, quietly. But forever, I would figure it out. She was right about that. But I would never, ever ask them for anything again. I was done. So, I stopped calling, and I started working. I got a second job. This time at the Ambrose Law Library. The real one. It was this ancient building. The kind that smelled like old paper. Lemon oil. And floor wax. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels sacred. My shift was the graveyard shift. Midnight to 6 a.m. I wasn't just shelving books, I was inhaling them. I'd sit in the dark aisles of the stacks. My highlighter the only spot of color. Reading case law from the 1,920 seconds. That's where I met Professor Wesley. He was a legend in the contract law department. Famous for being brilliant. And even more famous for being absolutely brutal in his critiques. He wasn't warm, or kind, or nurturing. He was something better. He was fair. He worked late, pacing the stacks. Lost in thought. He never spoke to me. I was just part of the furniture. Until one night, he found a treatise I'd left on a desk. I'd been scribbling notes in the margins. Arguing with a precedent from 1,920 arguings precedent. Outlining what I thought was a better argument. He picked it up. Who wrote this? His voice wasn't angry. It was curious. I did. Professor, I'm sorry. I used a pen. He ignored my apology. He looked at the note, then at me. You think Hadley B. Bowes? Baxendale was decided incorrectly. My heart was hammering. I think the court missed the opportunity to define consequential damages more clearly. It's inconsistent with... He cut me off. Be in my office at 9 a.m. I thought I was being fired. I spent the rest of my shift sick with worry. The next morning, I stood outside his office. He didn't ask me to sit. He just said, I've been looking for a research assistant for 6 months. Everyone I interview just tells me what I want to hear. You argued with a 200-year-old precedent. You're hired. Working for Wesley changed everything. It wasn't just the money. Though God, it helped. It was validation. He didn't care that I was practical or strong. He cared that I was smart. He'd hand me a 300-page brief and say, find the flaw. And I would. He'd just nod. Good. Do it again. He was the first person in my life who saw me not for what I could do for him, but for what I could think. A few months later, he called me into his office again. I'm nominating you for the National Lex Scholarship, he said, not looking up from his papers. My breath caught. Professor, that's for the top 0.5%. It's $150,000. I'm aware of the amount, he said dryly. The application is due in 3 weeks. Don't be late, and don't disappoint me. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anyone. For 3 weeks, I didn't sleep. I worked my diner shift, my library shift, and every second in between. I wrote my essays, polished my transcripts, and every draft was fueled by a single sentence. Playing on a loop in my head, you don't need that. I wouldn't need it. I would earn this. The email came on a Tuesday morning. I was in the library. The sun just starting to filter through the tall, dusty windows. Subject, National Lex Scholarship Committee. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't click the mouse. I finally managed to open it. Dear Ms. Lauren, on behalf of the committee, it is with great pleasure. I didn't make a sound. I just sat there, in that empty, silent library, and I cried. It was a different kind of cry, not the hot, angry tears of being hurt. It was this quiet, shaking, shuddering sub, the kind of cry that comes after you've been holding your breath for 23 years. I had done it. My entire education, my entire future. It was paid for. It was mine. And I had done it all. By myself. A week later, I called home. I don't know why. Maybe some small, stupid part of me still wanted them to be proud. To finally see me. It was a test. One last test. My mother, Susan, answered. Lauren, we haven't heard from you. I hope you're managing. I'm fine. Mom, I said, my voice steady. Actually, I have some good news. I was selected for the National Lex Scholarship. It's $150,000. It covers the rest of my tuition and living expenses. There was a pause. Not a wow pause. Not an oh my God. That's incredible pause. It was a processing pause. Well, Lauren, that's Wonderful. Her voice was flat. How very practical. I waited. Nothing. See, she finally continued, her voice warming up. But not for me. I knew you'd figure something out. You always do. We're so glad that's handled. I felt the last bit of hope just dissolve. It turned into something cold and hard. Oh, she said, suddenly energetic. Speaking of good news, your father and I just put in an offer on a small apartment for Megan in Florence, right near the Uffizi Gallery. It's just a little studio, but she needs a stable place. You know, to really focus on her creativity. She's so thrilled. I pictured Megan in her beautiful Italian studio, paid for, and me under the fluorescent lights of the library at 3 a.m. And I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt finished. That's great for her. Mom, I said, I have to go. I have to study. I hung up the phone. I didn't cry. I just sat there. It was confirmed. They would never see me. Because they didn't want to. I wasn't a person to them. I was just the solution to my own problems. A few days later, the invitation for the awards gala arrived. It wasn't an email. It was a thick, cream-colored envelope. Heavy linen paper. The university crest embossed in gold. It said, "The Ambrose Law School cordially invites you to the National Lex Scholarship Gala." It was black tie. I was going to throw it away. I really was. But then I looked at it. The embossed letters. The weight of it in my hand. They thought my life was small, practical, boring. They'd just proven it. They'd reduced my single greatest achievement into a footnote in the story of Megan's apartment. A new idea formed. A cold, clear, simple idea. They wanted to see me as the practical one. Fine. I picked up the phone one last time. Mom, me again. I could hear her sigh. What is it? Lauren, is something wrong? No. Nothing's wrong, I said, making my voice as small as possible. I was just calling because, well, the law school is having this little dinner for that scholarship thing I mentioned. It's just a certificate, I think. But they said we should invite our families. I know it's probably boring, but would you guys come? Another pause. Oh, Lauren, you know how your father hates these stuffy academic things? Is it mandatory? No, not mandatory, I said. It's just, you know, a little awards thing. It won't be long. Fine, she said, like I was asking for a huge favor. We'll be there. Mark, we have to go to a boring dinner for Lauren, yes. That one, I could hear him groan in the background. We'll be there, she said. We'll try not to fall asleep. Great, I said, my voice sweet. See you then. I hung up, and I smiled. Boring, I thought to myself, looking at the gold-embossed invitation. You have no idea. The night of the gala, I wore a simple $20 dress. When my family walked in, I saw their faces. The Ambrose Great Hall wasn't a little dinner. It was a cavern of chandeliers and tuxedos. My mother, Susan, clutched her purse. My father, Mark, looked trapped. They found their table at the front and realized, all at once, this wasn't some boring certificate. The ceremony started. Then, Professor Wesley walked to the podium. The National Lex Scholarship, he said, is not just about achievement. It is about resilience. I watched my mother clap politely. The recipient of this year's $150,000 award, he continued, worked multiple jobs, including the night shift, to put herself through this program. My mother's smile faltered. Wesley's voice dropped, sharp as glass. She achieved this because she had to. She did it all without a single dollar of financial support from her family. The words echoed. Without financial support. My mother's face froze. My father stared at the floor. His face red. The silence at their table was deafening. Please join me, Professor Wesley said, in welcoming Lauren. The hall erupted. 500 people were on their feet. I walked calmly to the stage. Wesley shook my hand. You earned this, he whispered. Then he turned back to the microphone. I know what this award means. 30 years ago, I received it myself, after my own family cut me off. This scholarship, it finds the ones who deserve it. That word, deserve, the perfect final cut. Afterward, they cornered me. Susan's voice was shaky. Lauren, we had no idea it was this big. You didn't tell us. I looked right at her. No anger. Just clarity. You didn't know, I said, because I was never the one you were looking for. She flinched. I thought you were so capable. My father mumbled. My capability wasn't a gift. I said, it was the burden you gave me, and I'm done carrying it. I didn't know, Megan whispered. I met her eyes. You didn't want to know. Megan, it was easier for you not to. Just then, a man in a sharp tuxedo stepped up. Ms. Lauren, excuse me. I'm a partner at the firm sponsoring your award. We'd like to discuss a position in our New York office. I looked at my family, standing there, silent and small. Then I turned to the partner and smiled. Of course, I'd like that very much. I turned my back and walked away, leaving them in a room full of applause that was never meant for them. I accepted the job. A few days later, Susan texted, "We're so proud. Come home for a celebration." I typed back, "I'm busy packing." My first night in New York, I stood at my window. I thought about my mother's voice. You don't need that. She was right. I didn't need their support. Not because I was strong, but because I was done. Sometimes the only way to win is to stop playing their game. Have you ever had to walk away to save yourself? Share your story below and subscribe for more.